Hello, my name is Hailey McArthur, and today we're going to be talking about the electromagnetic spectrum. To be able to understand what the electromagnetic or EM spectrum is, first we're going to need to understand what an electromagnetic wave is. EM waves are all different forms of light and are made up of electric and magnetic fields. The major properties of EM waves are speed, wavelength, and frequency. Because EM waves are all light, they travel at the speed of light, but can differ in wavelength and frequency. These properties have an indirect relationship, so as wavelength increases, frequency decreases, and vice versa. The electromagnetic spectrum is then the different types of EM waves, all best defined by wavelength. From longest to shortest, we have radio waves, microwaves, infrared, visible light, ultraviolet light, X-ray, and gamma rays. As I said before, EM waves are all forms of light, but the human eye can actually only see waves in the visible light portion due to how our eyes process them. Although this is the portion that defines how we see the world, the rest of the EM spectrum still affects us in rather large waves. So the first portion I wanted to talk about on the EM spectrum is radio waves. Radio waves have the longest wavelength and lowest frequency of any EM waves and are most commonly used for everyday wireless communication, like radios, cell phones, and wireless internet, and they all rely on movement of radio waves. Despite the complexity of these things we need these waves for, the actual process for sending the information along is rather simple. A transmitter creates a radio wave, varying the amplitude and frequency to send a message. Because of their long wavelengths, they're able to travel far distances without being absorbed, so the message isn't changed much by the time it reaches the receiver, which would be your phone, radio, or your television, which is programmed to take in the signal and repeat the message as either a sound or an image. Another important portion of the EM spectrum in our everyday life is ultraviolet light, not so much because of the benefits, but because of the real harm they can do to human health. Most of the UV rays that are emitted from the sun are completely absorbed by our atmosphere in the ozone layer, but the ones that are not can penetrate our skin and be absorbed into the body. The amount of melanin in your skin can decrease your sensitivity to these UV rays, but they can still be dangerous for anyone. There are the rays that can cause sunburns and even skin cancer. In fact, UV radiation is known as a complete carcinogen because it's able to both create and promote the growth of cancer cells. It isn't all bad, of course. UV radiation in the skin promotes vitamin D production and increases endorphins for the brain. And artificial UVC light is also being studied for its ability to act as a disinfectant, but for the most part, the benefits of exposure to UV light do not seem to outweigh the risks. The last portion of the EM spectrum I want to go over are X-rays. Although they aren't as present in the everyday world, they've been absolute game changers in the scientific community, specifically with X-ray imaging. The basic process behind X-ray medical imaging is very simple. A beam of X-rays is shot at a person, and because of the rays' very high energy, most waves pass right through the person and onto the screen behind them, creating a negative space. However, calcium in our bones have a very large atoms that can absorb X-rays. So when a wave comes in contact with a bone, it does not pass through the body, and that difference is noticeable on the screen. The screen then becomes an image of the person's bone structure, which allows doctors to diagnose problems with the bones quickly and without causing more damage. Since its discovery, X-ray imaging has likely saved millions of lives. These are just a few of the ways which the EM waves can affect our life, but there are countless other examples. The electromagnetic spectrum is all around us, and although we can only see one portion of it, our lives wouldn't be the same without them. Thank you so much for listening.